what we're looking at this afternoon is how to naturally overcome and avoid depression. How to naturally overcome and avoid depression. And biblical wisdom we want to take from three different passages found in the Proverbs. Three different passages found in Proverbs. In Proverbs chapter 15, verse 30 says, "The light of the eyes rejoice the heart, and a good report maketh the bones fat." So we see there that a good report maketh the bones fat. And so one first text here for our biblical wisdom that points to, again, the connection of the mind and the body. That a good report, when somebody is happy, when somebody hears good things, it makes the bone fat. And some of us need more dense bones, right? Proverbs chapter 16 verse 24 says, "Pleasant words are as a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones." Health to the bones. So pleasant words. When you hear pleasant words, when you hear good words, it make the bones grow. It make the marrow works well, produce good blood, and it gives vibrancy to the body. Amen? So we want to be hearing some sweet and pleasant words. And so when a person is sad and when they're not happy, it dries them up. But you can tell people normally can die of a broken heart. I'm sure you've heard that before. And nothing can explain that. In Proverbs chapter 17 verse 22, Proverbs 17 verse 22 says, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth up the bones again." Drieth up the bones. A broken spirit drieth up the bone. The person will lose all what you call savor of life. They do not savor the things of life anymore. They do not love the things of life. They look forward to death. And so this is why we say depression is a twin brother or twin sister to suicide. They go hand in hand. And so we want to make sure that when we partake of some of these principles, we'll share that you will not be sad and depressed. Symptoms of major depression here, symptoms of major depression is deep sadness and emptiness. Apathy, that means the person doesn't care, doesn't have no care for anything, so the person doesn't want to come out of their bed or do anything. And this is important because we know that ladies in church is apathetic. They do not care about anything. They do not care for good or bad, neither cold nor warm. So I guess most of the churches have been experiencing depression. Agitation and restlessness, sleep disturbance, weight and appetite disturbance. So a person cannot maintain proper weight, and their appetite also is being disturbed. Lack of concentration, and so various other problems will come under this. Feeling of excessive guilt and worthlessness. So the person feels guilty all the time about whatever thing they're doing, and keep in mind this part. And then worthlessness. Feel worthless. Not just some idea of look worthless, but feeling worthless, and probably that can show on the outside that the person has no much value in themselves. Morbid thoughts. These are thoughts of death and suicide. Thoughts of death and suicide. So you find that the person having thoughts of death and suicide constantly. Right? And this is why you find sometimes teenagers will often think about suicide, or they'll quickly say, "I feel like killing myself," because they keep having these recurring thoughts because of various different body imagery issues. And symptoms continue. Fatigue, so always feeling tired. Because again, merry heart do it good like a medicine. The person feeling tired, because part of the whole aspect of feeling energized has to do with the hormones in the brain, which we'll cover in a little bit. Symptoms of major depression continue. A person who experiences at least 5 of the 9 symptoms for at least 2 weeks have clinical defined major depression. So if a person experiences any of these 9 symptoms, they have clinically defined depression. Also, say a person who experiences 2 of the 4 symptoms for at least 2 weeks as a clinically defined mild form of depression called subsyndromal depression. So 2 to 4 of them, and it could be short-lived, not long-lived, short-lived. So you can tell, because a person can go into a long period of depression, or a person could just go into a short period of depression. And what they've found is that sometimes suicide can be happen within an hour or so after a person goes into depression. Because the person goes and starts feeling down, and because they start feeling down, they feel the morbid thoughts come to mind that they want to end this misery because they don't want to continue. And so it can be a very short-lived experience that could cause major life-altering actions. Now, what body functions are harmed by depression? Reduce brain size. Reduce brain size. You see, because we were not created to think on morbid thoughts or depressing thoughts all day long. And so it affects the brain and it damages the brain. Increase stress hormone level. So stress hormones are increased, and I'm sure you've experienced this when you're going through a sad bout, because we all go through depression at one point or the other. We all feel sad about something at one point or the other. And I'm sure when you feel sad about something, whatever it is in your life, that your whole experience become very stressful, and you experience stress all over your system, and so it put the body on a lot of stress. And as I said, the mind affect the physical being. Osteoporosis, the thinning of the bones. Now this is one of the things that we talk about, that science oftentimes find themselves catching up to the Bible, or validating, I shouldn't say even catching up, but more validating something in the Bible, because you see there, I have various different researches that scientists have put a correlation between depression and bone density, right? And so the Bible, as I started out talking about the idea that says when you have a merry heart, it makes the bone grow. And so we find that depression dries the person up. Hypertension. All right, and you could understand why, because they've done new research on hypertension and find out that it's not just that the person having clogging because the person just clogged up from eating just only so much fried food, but you find also that the stress hormones, they damage and cause inflammation into the circulatory system, and this increases all type of problems when it comes on to hypertension, not just the junk that is going into the bloodstream, but also the stress hormones and the stress that is being released upon the body. Blood sugar. So the person have a problem maintaining good blood sugar. And I know if you experience fight or flight will create depression in your system because your body is up and down. Asthma. All right, because again, it's the stress on the body. Headache, anything to do with stress. So I can speed up this list here. Headache, physical disability, seizure, infertility, and sex hormonal problems, because many times somebody will have in some type of sexual hormonal problem, and one of the things that the doctor quickly try to find out is the person depressed, because if the person is depressed, they can stop the physical hormones from functioning, causing the physical body to function well. Affect behavior, interference. Well, most actually affect the behavior because people can get violent or things like that. Interference with learning and job prospect. It's hard to maintain a job because again, sometimes when it's a hard day the day before, the next day sometimes hard to go to work, and so you need that motivation, you need that drive, and if the drive is not there, you could lose your job. And also learning, going to school. Problems, problem children. Most of the time when you have parents who are depressed, their kids end up turning out being depressed, and then the kids become misbehaving, because again, it's when you're depressed, it's hard to control our father or mother children. That's just the reality. Nicotine addiction, because the person is looking for some type of stimulant to get them going, and all of the or fiend type of addiction will be included here. Alcohol addiction, most naturally, because who have sorrows and who have woes, those who stay long at the bottle. But then who normally stay long at the bottle, those who have sorrows and woes. So which is the problem? Is the bottle causing the problem or the woes causing the problem? And then most naturally, lastly on here, one of the things that are affected is actually persons decide to end the misery by committing suicide. Suicide risk factor, because again, they both go together. Male is the highest, is the main risk factor for suicide. Male, they have, I think, 8 times more female try to commit suicide than male, or something. Yeah, 8 I think it is. But it just happened that male are more successful at killing themselves, because the methods that male use are more vicious, like putting a gun to their head. So male end up having a higher rate of suicide, but it just happened that the attempts are about 8 times more for female. All right, so female attempt more, but male succeed more often than not because of the methods they use that normally end their life when they try. Also, risk factors here. So male is the #1 risk factor to watch out for. Various mental illnesses. People who have mental illness problem oftentimes commit suicide, again, for various different reasons. Alcohol and drug abuse is a suicide risk factor. More alcohol, more drugs is a likelihood. Sometimes I think people probably by the alcohol, drugs kill themselves by accident. Prior suicide attempts. So, just like anything without a sin problem, if you try it one time, it's easier to try again. family history of suicide, you know, you learn behavior oftentimes from your parents, and also can be transferred done by hereditary traits. Refusal to seek help. So refusal to seek help is something, again, that happens. The person knows they're going through a problem, but they do not want to come to the first step, which is to say, no, I'm going to reach out because I'm not helping my own problem. Stressful life event. That means this is common. You know, you've seen it where a person died and then 2 days later their husband died or their wife died and 2 days later they die. You know, stressful life events, affairs, things like that. Stressful life events. Serious physical illness. We know that says this weekend probably about 90 people in America will commit suicide by gun. And a percentage of that will be people who are elderly and sick. And so they're to stop the pain, they'll just stop their life. Anniversary of a loss. Most actually self-explanatory. Withdrawal from drugs, because withdrawal from drugs is so vicious on the whole system, both mentally and physically. Homosexuality is another risk factor for suicide, because the person is so confused in their mind they decide to stop their life. Also, again, heavy metal music has been associated. The noise, I guess, drive them to the point where they do not want to live. Body image disorder. This was more common in teenagers who are trying to fit the image that oftentimes they see on TV, which you know is an image that is not normally cherry-picked. And so you'll have on TV, there's always an image of a very slender, beautiful model, and she's probably big 1 out of 1,000 and they pick in a whatever, or you see a million. And so, but then somebody see that and thinking, I need to have that image, and they can't attain to that image, and they feel like they're not worthwhile living. Their life is a mess, and they kill themselves or commit suicide. Access to lethal methods such as gun, because as I say, a person could feel depressed for an hour or two and then it goes away. But if they have an access where they can just take something and end it right there, they'll end it oftentimes. And if they probably just wait another hour, they will feel okay. And so this is another risk factor. These are unchangeable risk factors, which we're not going to so much, the seminar is not about talking about that, because we're talking about natural means of overcoming depression. Unchangeable risk factors for depression are genetics. That means you inherited it from your parents, or grandparents, or wherever it came from. Age is a risk factor. Teenagers or elderly, higher risk of suicide and also depression. Gender. Gender, as I say, more women will, because oftentimes women find themselves in situations that will cause them to be very depressed. And most naturally, male, on the other hand, are more effective of either killing themselves or suffering from the risk of depression. Ethnic differences: black women find themselves in Hispanic to be high with depression, and also they find themselves sometimes to be more risk factor with suicide, and that can be easily explained from where black women will find themselves in a stressful situation that will cause you to be depressed. History of depression in adolescence, if you have it, so then the person could have a risk factor of suicide when they're older. And family history of depression, so a lot of families members depressed, the person is easily depressed, and some of that is hereditary, I believe, and some of that is cultivated because you learn risk factors from your parents. You learn risk factors from watching other people deal with stress, and you learn to deal with stress the same way, and then that will lead to a lot of suicide. So again, changeable risk factor for depression, nutrient deficient diet. So these are changeable factors. These are something you can do. Changeable things will be nutrient deficiency, serotonin levels. 1 billion block is amino acid tryptophan to optimize serotonin production. Diet deficient in omega-3 fatty acid, high meat and protein intake. More meat, more protein will be a risk factor that is changeable. Physical inactivity, that means the couch potato lifestyle, will create more depression. So the person is in a depression state. They sit down, munching more food that are deficient in omega-3, serotonin, and so forth. And then voila comes more depression, and then they're more stuck in that situation. They're creating their own problem. So we want to get out a little bit and get some physical activity. Circadian rhythm interruption, that means not properly sleeping at night, not properly getting your interruption of your sleep is no good, and no hope or no interest for your future. That's something that causes depression. If a person have no hope for the future, no interest in their future, then the question is, they'll often say, why is life worth living? This can lead to other problems, which is obvious, and so we'll deal with that because again, we don't want to lose hope in this life, and if we lose hope in life, oftentimes we could lose hope in the life to come. Changeable risk factors for depression. These are changeable risk factors. One of the changeable risk factors we find is metal toxicity. Metal toxicity. So a person could be depressed simply because of the amount of metal that is in their diet. Lead, which is obviously a nerve and brain toxin found in many calcium supplements, is a risk factor. The calcium carbonate of Tums, you're familiar with that product? Also the calcium carbonate in Tums have a lot of lead in it. It's been tested to have lead, and so if you think this is part of the thing that's causing the brain toxin to be found in your brain, you want to be able to stay away from things like Tums. Also, lower income families on high fat diet with dangerous levels of fat in their blood. So what happens is that, as you know, most of these toxins or these things like lead or stuff get into the water system, get into the vegetables and so forth and so on. And as they get on those things, the cows eat it, it gets lodged into the cows, or all the animals eat it, they get lodged into their fat cells. People eat, especially poor income family, eat too much of this, end up having high levels of lead in their blood. So they're picking up the lead from somewhere else. This will affect the kids, and the kids will have depression and learning difficulty, and they can't cure it. They could pay all the money to the teachers. They're not going to fix the problem, because the problem is the diet is bad. So these are changeable risk factor. Mercury, sensitivity, interaction with other so again, mercury, when you have too much mercury in your system, you start to become having sensitivity with interaction with people. Also, you find that the person become irritable, easily irritated, easily agitated. They have a avoidant behavior. That means they like to avoid people. I'm sure you've seen this. And now think about it, the person who is depressed need to actually come closer to people to be encouraged, but the person now start to avoid people. This could be because there's too much mercury in their system. Mercury also been proven clinically to cause depression. Mercury cause fatigue, lethargy. Person become tired all the time because of the mercury poisoning. You're easily exposed to mercury in various different ways. The obvious ways, as you know, but the not so obvious ways are in certain beauty creams are mercury, because mercury is used as a preservative. Vaccines are preserved with mercury, and so this could be a problem that's causing some irritability and problems in the body and depression. Fish has high levels of mercury. This is well publicized, and so this is why we have to avoid eating these type of things. Certain beef and other meat have high levels of mercury, and so this are toxicity that will build up in the body. Manganese, arsenic, not so much. They're not so much what we call trace minerals, but these are something that we will receive in can receive in our body that are poisonous in their inorganic form. Bismuth, something that's not well too familiar with most of us, but we are familiar with a product that has bismuth. Again, a metal that can cause toxicity, and it's found in Pepto-Bismol, used for indigestion, diarrhea, and to treat Helicobacter pylori. It has been proven to cause H. pylori bacteria. It's been used to, it has been proven to cause depression, anxiety, irritability, and tremors. And I remember myself, I used to use a lot of this Pepto-Bismol. This is the pink stuff, right? Yeah. Right, and so this here it's part of it is the metal that is used to help the digestive system. Here are some other ones that are not so much well familiar. So I'll just mention organotin, which is used in insect and rodent killer and disinfectants. It causes alternating bouts of rage and deep depression. Also, here it's trimethyltin chloride, which is mostly found in industrial processes, so that normally will not affect the general public. It's more used in industries. Changeable risk factors continue. Social factors, parental separation can cause depression, sexual abuse, no social support. So this is why I would encourage you to come to Covenant Advent Church to get social support. Stressful life events, and codependency. Codependency is oftentimes described as a person who is married to somebody, say, who's an alcoholic, and the alcoholic is dependent upon them for them to be able to continue the alcoholism and function. But the person also is so appreciative that somebody is so deeply dependent upon them. So it's like a codependency. Each of them need each other. The one can't function without the other, and the other can't function because they need this person to be dependent upon them. They find their place in life from this type of experience. So social factor is, again, codependency. This often leads to depression because both people are depressed in the situation that they're in. And these are changeable factors. Winter depression, again, this is something that can be dealt with, especially with bright lights, making your house very light, making sure that you have some plants to look at, or just move somewhere like Florida or California. It says legal drugs. Legal drugs can cause most naturally depression. Tobacco causes depression. Caffeine causes depression. Alcohol most naturally causes depression. Acne drug Accutane now comes in with a warning label from the SDA, includes suicidal thoughts, emotional instability, and depression. So the person has some acne, they put the thing on their face, and next thing you know, they're getting depressed. Or they're becoming emotionally unstable. It's true. Illicit drug use, amphetamines and cocaine, well known for depression during withdrawal. So these drugs are well known that when a person starts going to withdrawal, they go into some serious depression. And so, again, the obvious thing to do is to not take the drugs. Head injury. The head injury can cause depression. This has been widely publicized recently in the news because quite a few of the athletes, especially the American football athletes, have killed themselves in some very violent manner using guns. And so, but their issue was that their brains were damaged and they couldn't think straight and so forth and so on, and they wanted to stop the pain, and so they decided to kill themselves. And so the top head injury when it comes on a sport, there's other ways you can hit your head, like through an accident or so forth. But anyhow, when it comes on a sport, number one is football, and then wrestling, soccer, and basketball. They are tested on soccer players, and what they realize that constant head-butting that ball, not just falling and hitting it, but hitting that ball, it's a certain amount of poundage that's shaking the brain up. And that constant shaking that brain up does damage to the brain. And many people get very depressed, taking all kind of supplements and stuff to try to fix the brain, but the brain has been quite battered up there. And some of those are on basketball, but those are on the list. But those could be more from dropping and hitting the head and stuff like that. Those are low on the list. Really, I think 60-something% of this list was football alone. Almost all the injuries are coming from football alone. But boxing is just in a category by itself. You're just going to come up with all kind of head problems. But volume-wise, we're talking in America. Volume-wise, you find that most of the head trauma is coming from playing that football. But in general, hitting your head, falling and hitting your head can damage the brain and cause depression. And so these are change risk factors. So the change with that is that you want to take care of the body, just like what we're talking about this morning, and not be hitting yourself up too hard. Diseases. AIDS, Parkinson, diabetes are examples of diseases that when people have, they become very depressed. Obviously, it's obvious why. Nobody likes to be sick, and sickness make you feel sad. Having a baby, and just to clarify, that is marital tension while having the baby or after you have the baby, can cause depression. Stress related to child care, picking up a child, dropping off a child, picking up a child, dropping off a child, have to make that schedule. That can cause people to become very depressed. Lacking strong emotional support while having a baby or after having a baby can cause people to go into depression. And most actually they call it, it can postpartum depression and so forth. So this depression is well known. This is not anything new to NFU. PMS is another thing that can cause depression. Most naturally, going through the experience of that can be very depressing. In Nedley's book 2001, he says your serotonin is an important neurotransmitter in the brain, particularly in the frontal lobe. This is an area that needs to be vitally enhanced in depressed patients. The brain can make no serotonin unless tryptophan is first present. Some depressed individuals are very sensitive to even a small or temporary reduction in tryptophan, and missing just one day of moderate to high tryptophan intake can send them into relapse of depression. And so he had claimed in his book that he had patients where we put them on a diet that will give them a high amount of tryptophan so that the body can produce serotonin. Just one day of junk food can send them into clinical depression, massive depression, because their body needs so much in order for them to keep good. And so to give an example of what would be important to eat, if you look at the board here, you notice whole milk will only give you about 46 mgs per 100 gram. 100 gram is a little bit less than a cup of tryptophan, but things that have high amount of tryptophan would be here: black eyed peas, black walnut, almonds, sesame seed, gluten flour, pumpkin seed, and tofu. So again, person who want to be able to alternate and have these things on a regular basis in their diet, that would help them to be able to boost their amount of tryptophan, which in turn will create, will convert into serotonin and give them that feel good hormone in the brain. And you want to make sure this is there, and many people have attested that there's this type of stuff. And why this is important, if I go back here real quickly, why this is important, because if you notice that says a more plant-based diet that is varied and that is whole will give you a good amount of feel-good chemicals within your system so your body can feel good. So again, a person could just be eating all junk food, not having any of these old good plant-based stuff in their diet, and they find themselves depressed, and all they would need to do, which is a changeable factor, is just change their diet. Just simple that, you know, and do some other things, which we'll talk about still. A little bit more to go. It says omega-3 is an important nutritional element in brain science. Many research have demonstrated that a diet high in omega-3 can help those suffering from bipolar disorder, manic depression, in addition to major depression, which is unipolar disorder. The original source of omega-3 for fish is seaweed. So many people will say, well, where you get the omega-3 from is going to eat fish, but the fish is getting its source from somewhere else, is getting it from the seaweed. So this is something good to be able to put in your diet, some seaweed in your diet. Another good thing here is flaxseed and walnut. Walnut and flaxseed has a high amount of omega-3 fatty acids, higher amount than even salmon. And so if you partake of flaxseed in various different forms and walnuts, you'll find that you get good amount of omega-3, including seaweed. A word on fish and contaminants. And I want to give this example here because I wanted to talk about why a person will not go to fish, because again, tryptophan is important to create serotonin. And the second big thing that we know in the brain is that omega-3 fatty acids. And some people will say, well, you know, why couldn't we eat some fish? Well, bioaccumulation is the process by which toxins gradually build up in certain organs of humans or other target organism. Biomagnification refers to the process where toxins become progressively more concentrated as they move up the food chain. And so these two words here, bioaccumulation, which is the process of the gradual buildup, and biomagnification, which is the process of progressively more concentrated. So it's accumulating, but also it's becoming concentrated. All right. This two words here, these two processes that happens, especially in reference to contamination of fish, is important for us because it's important to find where we're getting out of our toxins, and some of those toxins are the same mercury that is magnified in the fish that create depression. And so somebody could be depressed because they need to they have too much mercury in the system, but one of the things that's to help depression is omega-3. So a person said, well, let's go eat fish, but the fish has the mercury in it that causes depression. So to avoid that circular firing squad, what is best to just avoid the fish altogether, and we just won't be shooting each other. Is that true? Yeah. So the insecticide DDT is an halogenated hydrocarbon from the same family as DDT, which you know is very famous for causing all kind of birth problems in mothers. There is a correlation with halogenated hydrocarbons in the blood with hypertension, osteosclerosis, diabetes during subsequent years. The biomagnification is an example here that happens with the DDD that has been proven to cause many different problems. And they did a study in Clear Lake, California, and they took water sample, just straight water sample, to find out how much DDD per million was in the water, and they found out that it had about 0.02. That doesn't mean much to me or you, but what means much is that says as they took the phytoplankton living in the concentrated contaminated water, they found that it was 5 parts per million. Now that might not seem like much, but that's probably, I think it was about 750% increase. It was a massive increase. So the water had this amount, and the phytoplankton have how many times more concentration. But when they went to the herbivorous fish, now the fish that ate the plants, they found that they had 40 to 300 parts per million of the DDT. And by the time they go to the carnivorous fish that ate the herbivorous fish, they found that they have up to 2,500 parts per million concentration. So each one that partake and pull from the other one, it accumulates and it magnifies and it gets more concentrated, more bigger. And now when a person now go eat that carnivorous fish, what they're partaking of is some serious levels of toxins that they would think they're not partaking of. And this is the way our poisons like mercury and other type of poisons get concentrated, accumulated inside of the system, and then become a poison as the people eat the fish. So you can imagine a person eating fish on a regular basis will have so much mercury in their system. I remember a doctor said that he could know how much fish a person had eaten a week by simply taking a strain of their hair, send it out for lab tests, and by the level of mercury they could tell how much fish the person have within the week. And so cancer in fish is increasing. A Canadian biologist, Ron Sunstigard, has examined bottom-dwelling fish in the Great Lakes. And so these are fish like catfish and so forth, and the rivers that feed them. He found tumors in every fish species, often malignant. For example, 30% of the bullhead in Lake Erie have liver cancer. Does that make sense? And so what people are not understanding is that they're eating their cancer. They're eating their cancer. The PhD nutritionist and author, Dr. Winston Craig, in commenting on these findings, added 3 major sobering facts. The Great Lakes situation is not unique. Cancerous fish turn up from Puget Sound to the Gulf of California, and from the Hudson River, we know where the Hudson River is, to the Florida Keys. We know where the Florida Keys is, and those are beautiful, pristine waters. National Cancer Institute data show an increased death rate from cancer among people living in areas where fish have exceptionally large amount of tumors. So notice I'll read again for you because I want you to see this. Very important. The National Cancer Institute, this is the government agency that look at cancer, not a private company. Data show an increased death rate from cancer among people living in area where fish have exceptionally large amount of tumors. What do you think is happening there? They're eating their tumors, and they're having the tumors themselves. Third, it says here, the toxic nature of what is found in some of our waterways is astounding. When sediments from the bottom of Lake Erie were painted on the skin of mice, the mice developed skin cancer. You see that? They took the sediment from the bottom of the water, painted it on the mice, and the mice came down with cancer. What's at the bottom of the water? Cancer. And so people are eating those fish and they're passing all that poisonous concentrated toxins and cancer-causing chemical in their system that is also causing cancer in the system of the fishes. And so I believe it is both an issue of eating the poison in the fish and eating the tumors in the fish that is causing all kind of problems. So there's a biomagnification and bioaccumulation of toxins that are killing the fish and that are killing the human being. And as I say, important because this is from the National Institute of Health. This is the government saying that they're finding that there's a correlation between the areas that have large cancer rate in the fish and the area that has large concentration in the people. Lower concentration of cancer in the people. Lifestyle treatment for depression. So these are some things that we can do to deal with our depression. It says here, regular physical exercise, right? Again, not only any way you can do some exercise, get some regular physical exercise. And as I remember, this gentleman says, that's normally you start like this. This is how you start your exercise program, to literally get like a mouse and start lifting it. And then move on there to probably a pound and then 5 pounds. Is that true?
I don't know about that.
You don't know about that? You need to start with 10, 20, 40 pounds, right? More than a mouse. But start with something. Regular physical exercise. And they've done studies to show that says moderate exercise done more frequently or consistently will produce great results. So again, these are changeable lifestyle treatments that you can use to be able to overcome depression. And you know what happens? Most people become even addicted to exercise because they find when they exercise, the body release the good feeling hormones like serotonin, and then the person feels better about life. Deep breathing exercise, we're told that says it's best for us to take deep breaths, because we take deep breaths, we invigorate the brain, we put oxygen into the blood, and we make the blood flow better. All right, regular restful sleep. It can never be overstated what the goodness of sleep does, and doing regular sleep is good. Bright light therapy, this is especially important in winter. Many people have their homes dark. This will add to depression and add to their feeling down. So you want to make sure that says you have bright lights. Does inside of here feel bright? Does it feel light? Does it feel nice and clean and fresh? This is how you should be feeling at all time. Also, avoid negative thinking. Avoid what? Negative thinking. It's very important to avoid negative thinking. Avoid it as much as you can. Avoid it altogether. Because the more we avoid negative thinking, the more we don't plunge into depression that we can't pull ourselves back out of. Have social support. Having social support, having social support is very important when it comes on to dealing with depression and dealing with it in a natural way. Again, it's always good to have somebody to talk to. I remember I was looking at a list of suicide, and I think it was Greenland that have a rate of 100 to 108 people to I think it was 100,000 that die every year from suicide. America was about 30 something. Let's say have about 12 or 13 to over 100,000 that die of suicide. But you find countries that oftentimes don't have all the externals find that they have very low rate of suicide, because you live to do without. You need to try to make happy. And some of the biggest entertainment you have in some of these poor countries is that you just go and talk to somebody. And after you finish talking, guess what happened? You feel better. You didn't even remember what you were depressed. I probably used to remember, okay, you have to go back home and face it, but you just feel better. So again, having a social support will help. And as I say, this is of utmost importance. Recognize what behavior is contributing to your depression. One of the things that they have done is oftentimes try to recognize what somebody did to you that caused you to be sad. But it's important, and they're looking at this about I think it's called cognitive behavioral adjustment or modification, where it's important for you to look at what you're doing to cause your depression. It's good to look at what people are doing so you can remove yourself from certain things. But also, many times I met people who have been very depressed and they do things that precipitate their depression. You know, they're doing something that causes themselves to become more depressed. So you want to readjust that and want to admit the fact that, so when I do this, this happened. You know, if I take my hand and I take it and put it on the iron and I burn myself, probably after my hands burn, I'm going to be sad. How about you? You be sad? So probably you need to stop taking your hands and putting it on the iron and leave the iron alone. Make somebody else do the ironing. So what is your value in God's estimation? We have a major problem, especially in, as I said, when you look at a list of the people who are depressed, it's mostly countries that don't believe that there's a God. They believe that they're either evolving somewhere or they're going to be changed into a chimp or some cow or something. And you find those countries are the most depressed countries. So again, there's a major corollary factor, that the fact that says those people who, if you look at the list of those people who are committing most of the suicide, here are people for the most part don't believe, they believe that they came from, as I say, a chimp or some type of animal. And so again, it is very important to know that we have value in God's sight, and that Christ, as I said this morning, died to save us and put value in us. Even if we didn't value ourselves, he said, I'm going to put some value in you. or make you like fine gold. And so when we kind of readjust our thinking and knowing that there's value in us, then we will not see our life as cheap and not see our life as worth living. Doing the right thing is important. It cannot be understated. It has to be overstated more so, that it's important to do the right thing. Most of the time, people who are depressed are not doing the right thing. Most of the time. As I'm saying, if you're in a home or you're in a situation, what makes you depressed is one thing. And oftentimes, teenagers can be very depressed because they don't want to be in the home. But even if I've talked to teenagers, I tell them, say, if you're going to be depressed not being in the home because you don't like the rules of your parents, at least you should not be accused of being a wrongdoer or evildoer by your parents. At least you need to do the right thing by your parents. And then if you're still depressed, we probably need to pray about it. But I guarantee that most of the times is that probably your parents are oppressing you, but probably you're doing things that is not right. So we need to first deal with your problems and then worry about your parents' problems. So doing the right thing is important. Owning a pet can be helped. Many people have seen this as a very important source of help, especially when we deal with people who are older, who are probably lonely by themselves, and they find like a pet is something to care for. By caring for something else, they take their mind off their self, because depression can be very much associated with what we call a crush on oneself or too much focus on oneself. Narcissistic. So again, it's good to care for something else and to look out for something else. So owning a pet has been a good therapy for men to feel like life is worth living, and to give them an interest to wake up the next day and to see the next day and to enjoy their pet the next day. Again, it's always about looking forward to tomorrow. Hydrotherapy, just doing hot and cold showers, not too hot and not too freezing cold, but cold enough as you can take it, hot enough as you can take it, alternating about probably 5 seconds of hot and probably 30 seconds of cold, and alternated by that, I prefer to say 5 seconds of hot and 30 seconds of cold. Whatever you can take, just do it. And you'll find that says hydrotherapy and various other things that give you a soothing, relaxing feeling will help. Massage also has been found to help it increase circulation in the body. It releases tension, and this has been something that has helped many people when it comes on to depression. Continue here on lifestyle treatment for depression. Anxiety be anxious for nothing. In Matthew chapter 6 verse 34, Christ says, "Take therefore no thought for the morrow, for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof." The Lord knows that says we have to eat, sleep, and have our being. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to have our surroundings taken care of. But the Lord is not saying here that says we should just give up on life. But what he's saying here is that says you should not become anxious and always be fretting and worrying over what tomorrow might bring, what troubles might come your way, what problems might come your way. Sometimes you need to leave tomorrow for tomorrow and fight today's battle for today. Planning and organization is very important to deal with depression. Many times you plan not because you're worried about the future, but because you need to know what you're doing 5 years from now. How much of us know what we will be trying to do and attempt 5 years from now? And don't tell me you'll be on the beach somewhere drinking some non-alcoholic pina colada. But it's important to plan out life. It's important to know what you're doing, to have some organization. If you go into your house and you look at your house and your house is all a mess, you need to do something about that. You need to organize stuff, put stuff in bins, put stuff there. It makes less work for your mind. It's good to know that things are labeled, things are where they're supposed to be. Confusion creates confusion of the mind. So your surrounding is confused, it will increase confusion in the mind. So this is another important facet where you start to straighten up things and clean things up. Clean up your moral life, clean up your physical life, and you'll find that life will become more happy. Beware of critical spirit. Beware of critical spirit. Is always important to judge because again, I have to judge things. If I want to touch here, I have to make a judgment where my hand's going. That's also how the brain works. So judging, looking at things is important, but going to a point where it's always being critical. The Bible says here that we should not have a critical spirit. Also, spiritual focus therapy. What spiritual therapy, focus therapy is teaching a person to study the Bible and to learn about higher principles, learn about the commandments, learn about prophecy, learn about morality, learn about things that has to do with stories of the Bible of people overcoming, and learn about ways to deal with problems and wisdom and all that type of stuff. The only way you can get that true therapy is through a spiritual focus experience and learning spirituality from the Bible. And this can be done. We're getting right there. It's right on the board. So this can be done through study of books like Daniel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and so forth. Avoid alcohol. Alcohol is a factor that can be dealt with. And so again, if you find a lot of people who drink, they're depressed. A lot of people drink because they're depressed. But the alcohol is not going to help them to get any better. So we want to be able to avoid alcohol altogether. Alcohol destroys the mind. Avoid illicit drugs. Illicit drugs causes depression. So you want to avoid illicit drugs altogether, every known type of illicit drugs. Avoid caffeine. Caffeine has been proven that when a person drink the caffeine, the more they're depressed. Do you see happy people drinking caffeine? No, I don't see happy people drinking caffeine. That's just the reality. Now, when they're 20-something, they're happy. But by the time they reach a certain age, 30s, 40s, they crush because it eats out their life. And so avoid caffeine. Avoid nicotine. People who use nicotine are depressed because it eats out life. It eats them away. Follow a hygienic diet. Follow a hygienic diet. A hygienic diet is simply a diet that is free of animal products. That means you basically have a diet that avoids pus, blood, tumors, cysts, all these different various things that will cause illness in the body. Remember that 40%, 20-something to 40% depends on who you're talking to and where you're pulling the information. But 28 to about 40% of the energy, the nutrients that we use, a lot of it goes to the brain. And so if the person's liver is being damaged, the brain is being damaged more. Anything that's being damaged in the body, the brain is going to be affected because the brain consumes. The brain is one of the highest energy burner in our bodies. It uses so much energy. And so you want to make sure that says the diet is as clean because you're feeding your brain. If the brain is damaged, then the mental faculties is damaged, and then also the spiritual faculties become deadened and kill. Limit TV viewing. Some of us believe that says should turn it off altogether because TV is nothing but a lie. And most of it, I should say, there's parts of it that somebody says it's not really a lie, like Discover Channel, and then you find out that's a lie because it's telling people that they evolve. And so you find that it says there's little much that is there to be consumed. The mind that fixes himself on TV is a mind that is being paralyzed. And I've not met somebody that has not been paralyzed. And I find myself that when I think about myself, when I was consuming a lot of TV, my mind was not working right because you fill your mind with a lot of fairy tale. Again, one of the reasons why movies will make you depressed is because in the movie, the star always wins.
In 30 minutes solutions, you can get it in 30 minutes.
The star always wins, but in life, that star never wins. That star is a loser. All right, James Bond is the biggest loser, and no woman would really want to have James Bond as their husband. Okay. See, but again, the star always win. But the star doesn't always win. Those type of star where they're drinking alcohol, smoking too, but they're depressed people. And if you live a life like that, you'll be depressed. You see a movie star, they're depressed. And you look at the life of the people who even act the movies, they're very depressed. And so again, the prince always come and kiss the princess and then ride off into the sunset. And as I said, that's always worked out to be a disaster, ending divorce. And some of these princes nowadays, they divorce after 3 months or a month or somewhere like that. They just break up the marriage immediately because they find out that this guy is not a hero. The marriage was good, but it ain't working out. And so they get out of there. So TV viewing is normally fairy tale. And people fix their mind on this type of fairy tale. When you meet them, the more serious they believe in that fairy tale, the more depressed they are. Because they keep experiencing life and thinking, it never works like that in real life. Life is a struggle. Movie is not a struggle. Eliminate refined sugars and starches. It affects the brain. It spikes the blood sugar. Basically, anything that spikes the blood sugar will damage the brain, damage the small capillaries that feed the brain, and the brain will be damaged, and oftentimes damaged very permanently sometime. And so you want to eliminate refined sugars out of your diet, refined starches out of your diet. Any refined product, again, will cause diabetes. But remember, Alzheimer's is called diabetes of the brain or of the mind, because Alzheimer's basically is primarily pushed upon by killing sectors of the brain, burning out sectors of the brain, and this is what refined sugar does. Remember, our brain subsists of sugars, and so our brain need those sugars, but it need good quality sugars to be able to be fed. Almost there. Holy basil is a good herb to be used. This herb here is good for depression. It'll help you feel better about yourself and about life. It is an adaptogen. That means it helps you adapt to stress. It's antibacterial, antidepressant, antioxidant, antiviral, and calmative. It'll help you feel more relaxed. It's a diuretic, expectorant, is help milk production, and it's help to modulate your immune system. Use of holy basil prevent increased corticosterone level that increase elevated stress level. Protects the heart from stress and lower blood pressure and cholesterol. Holy basil is an adaptogen, so it helps the body to adapt to varying demands of stress. And lastly here, St. John's wort, which is called Hypericum. Hypericum, very good for any type of nerve problem. I always tell people that if you're having a problem with any type of teeth problem with your nerve, because you're having some type of abscess or some type of nerve pain with your teeth, one of the fastest things to take down the nerve sensitivity and pain is Hypericum. And I always tell people just mix some Hypericum, the herb itself, powdered herb, with some charcoal to pull any poisons out. And if you have any type of pain-killing herb, you can use that. But Hypericum and charcoal is excellent for any problem you have with your teeth. Just put it on the gum line inside the teeth. Paste, make a paste, put it up there, and you'll find that you'll take the nerve swelling down. And this works effectively because it's a good nervine. What is this called? It is taken by millions of the world over for relief of depression and as antibacterial property, antiviral property, pain relieving property, which, as I say, I've tested many a times, and it is very effective, even sometimes more effective than any of the other toxic chemicals that they will give you for pain. It is used to treat chronic fatigue syndrome, Lyme's disease, insomnia, and many other major ailments. The herb acts as a tonic for nervous system and can be used for nervous exhaustion, long-term anxiety, sleep difficulty, as well as depression. It may also be helpful in treating addiction. And so here in last, the biblical wisdom that we'll close on is in 3 John chapter 1 verse 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayst prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospered. And Lord wants us to prosper. Lord wants us to prosper not just in our physical bodies, but in our minds and in our souls. And the only way to do this is to not only take heed to his words, but to take heed to all the counsels that he gave us, that we could continue to take care of our bodies, take care of our health, and be in the best health that the Lord would have us do. So again, in summary, we find that there are certain factors that we can't do anything about for depression. You know, if we inherited it, if we have responsibilities that are beyond our coping mechanism can handle, and if we are in situation like being old and sick, or being young and having body imagery problem, whatever it is that life can throw at you, there are certain things that you can't do anything about. But the things you can do about is primarily in our lifestyle choices, and through dietary change, through social change, especially having people that are good. As I say, I've walked with people who are Christians, and I've walked with people that are worldly, and I'll take the Christians any day. I've often said even some of the places I've been there, the Christians will probably be even on the hypocritical scale of things. I find it was better to be with them than to be with people who are cutthroats, clear out cutthroats. At least they're making an effort over there to fake it. So I say that says it's a blessed thing to have a good social network around you. It's a blessed thing to have people that will be supportive of you. It's a blessed thing to understand that your body is a temple of the Lord, and that as you take care of it, it will bless you. And you find that if you deal with your thoughts, if you deal with exercise, if you deal with dietary change, you'll find that depression is not something that is so difficult to beat. But again, if a person says, I want to not be depressed, but I don't want to behave myself, well, you find yourself depressed. You know, I don't want to be depressed, but I like to hang around people who are, like they say, if you lie with dogs, you catch fleas. Well, you catch flea, and when the flea you catch is depression. So I pray that God may bless you, that as you try these things, and as you practice these things, and as you share these things with people that you know, that you'll be able to help them to deal with these problems, that they will not have the rates of depression and suicide that they often experience. And so we'll just bow our heads for a short prayer. Thank you, Lord, again for your love towards us, that while we're yet sinners, you decided to send your Son to die for us, that you can deliver us, dear Lord, from all maladies of the mind and of the body. And we know, dear Lord, through natural means that you can give us power and you can give us victory, and also through your supernatural power of your Holy Spirit. May you bless us as a people. May you give us the will and the mind, not only to live a happy and productive life, but to also share with others how they can live a happy and productive life. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.